Chapter 25, Lady Inuyumi of the Northern Land. Okay, so half this chapter is just Sesshomaru and Kagome making love. So I'm gonna skip all the graphic details. Meanwhile, in the Western Castle, Inuyumi was busy doing some of her paperwork, until the butler interrupted her. She put her glasses away and her smoke pipe away. "My lady." She softened her golden eyes and commanded him. "What is it, Sebastian?" "Lady Inuyumi of the Northern Land has returned to the Western Land to see your son Sesshomaru," Sebastian told her, bowing down to her. "She was willing to take him as her new mate." Inuyumi sighed in annoyance, rubbing her face. "Bring her in," she demanded him. "I just want to speak to her. Alone." "Yes, my lady." When Sebastian bowed down to her again, he left the study room and went to go fetch Inuyumi's worst enemy of the Northern Land. "Inuyumi, what do you want this time? I thought I told you that you'll never marry my son." Inuyumi sighed in disbelief in her thoughts. "Welcome, Inuyumi." Sebastian greeted her, bowing down to the young demon dog princess with silver long hair and dark golden eyes. She has yellow marks on her cheeks and her red lipstick. "I take it that you would return to the Western Land." "Thank you, Sebastian," Inuyumi said with a smile. "Lady Inuyumi wants to speak to you alone in the study room," Sebastian said, leading her to the giant hallway. "Thanks again, Sebastian. I can't wait to see my sweet Sesshomaru." Inuyumi giggled excitedly as she kept following Sebastian. "Mother, how nice to see you again," Inuyumi screeched excitedly as she hugged Inuyumi tightly. When she released her from a huge hug, Inuyumi began to sigh in annoyance and proceeded to tell her, "Look, first of all, I'm not your mother, Yumi. Second of all, call me Lady Inuyumi, or Kimi, whatever you decide." Inuyumi giggled happily, blushing softly. She looked into Inuyumi's golden gaze. "I'm sorry, Kimi, but I was willing to see my dear Lord Sesshomaru again. I hope he and I will be mates again." Inuyumi began to glare at her sharply, but with a smirk on her face. Inuyumi watched her crossing her arms across her chest. "I'm sorry, Yumi, but that's never going to happen." Inuyumi blinked in confusion. "What do you mean, Kimi?" Inuyumi smirked more. "What I mean, Yumi, is that my son is already married." "What?" Inuyumi screamed, widening her eyes in shock. "Then who married her? Who is she?" Without a warning, Inuyumi saw her teeth getting sharper with anger. Inuyumi knew Inuyumi was jealous of another woman. To her point of view, Inuyumi was quite annoying ever since she was obsessed with marrying her son Sesshomaru. But it was too late. Inuyumi was glad that Kagome was now her new daughter-in-law. "Mayumi, you look like you're boiling in anger and jealousy. Sesshomaru has married a human priestess named Kagome Higurashi. I would say I'm impressed by her purity and kindness. She even has a golden heart. I would say Kagome is like a daughter to me, but now my daughter-in-law. You missed your chance, Yumi," Inuyumi said, smirking. Inuyumi began to snarl towards the Lady of the Western Land in an angry-toned voice. "Sesshomaru would never fall in love with a human bitch. He despises humans because he blamed his half-brother and his human mother for Inunu Taisho's death. All the humans are weak, and so are the half-demons. I despise them as well." Inuyumi narrowed her eyes. She got up from the chair and walked towards her. Inuyumi knew she was threatening her. "Yumi, it seems like you forgot your replacement," she said with a smirk. Without warning, Inuyumi wrapped her hand around Inuyumi's neck as her eyes began to glow red. Inuyumi struggled to break free from her strong hand and struggled for breath. But Inuyumi was stronger than her. "Listen well, Yumi. If you ever raise your tone like that again, I will break your neck and turn you into dust. Got it?" Inuyumi nodded in fear. Inuyumi then let her neck go and watched her struggle for breath, coughing for air. She took a step forward and stared at her. "Yumi, remember that you are not welcome here, and you shall leave this place for good." If you ever try to claim to be my son's mate, I will have the guards slaughter you in pieces, and I will send you away from my son and even my kingdom. Stay out of my son's way. Understood?" Inuyumi growled at her, gritting her teeth. Her eyes emitted a red glow. She then flies away from Inukimi's demands. Inukimi smirked smoothly. "As I said before, Yumi, stay out of my son's way." She then heads back to her study room and continues working on her paperwork. Inuyumi was flying off in anger. She couldn't believe that her Sesshomaru was with another woman, a human at that. She thought he despised humans for their weaknesses, but turned out he ended up falling for a human priestess. She let out a growl in anger. "Who the hell does she think she is?" she complained to herself. "How dare she steal my Sesshomaru away from me? I will make her pay for this. I will slaughter this bitch with my claws." As a matter of fact, Inuyumi was boiling with anger on the inside. She couldn't understand why Sesshomaru would ever fall in love with a human girl. Her fist clenched in rage, as she despised a human girl that she never really met. She would get rid of her. That was a promise. Chapter 26. The Blood Moon Rises. Tsubaki stood at the desk with the Shikon jewel completely tainted by evil. She gazed at the two figures who were now together, but finding out she was pregnant with a half-breed child. She was angry at the moment. She didn't know their plan failed because of Naraku's plot. After all, she tried to get this young priestess Kagome Higurashi killed by the hands of the traitors, but turned out the curse had been broken. "Naraku, your plan didn't work. Kikyo was killed by Inuyasha, and Kagome is fully alive again because of the other half of her soul," Tsubaki said in anger. Naraku, the man dressed in purple with long wavy black hair and dark scarlet eyes, appeared out of nowhere where he stood behind her without a word. He had a calm expression on his face, yet with an evil smirk. "Of course, Kikyo is such a fool. Although, Kikyo has failed her mission to kill Kagome with her tragic death time," Naraku said with softened eyes. "Naraku, Kagome is pregnant with a half-breed child. We cannot stand around and do nothing. There must be another way to steal their precious jewel shards," Tsubaki argued, glaring at him. Naraku smirked with an idea. "What if we wait until Lord Sesshomaru's child is born? There must be a brilliant idea about how to steal the child." "And what is your idea, Naraku?" Tsubaki asked in a tone of voice. He chuckles, smirking more. "You shall see, Tsubaki. I know someone who has been replaced by Kagome." It was in the middle of the day when Kagome and Sesshomaru had finally returned to Kaede's village. Rin and Shippo were happy to see their so-called parents again. Although after their wedding day, they adopted them to be their two pups. Kagome was happy to become their adoptive mother. When they adopted the small demon fox and the human girl, Kagome decided to tell them that she was pregnant with their youngest sibling. Sesshomaru doesn't mind at all. He couldn't help but smile softly. "Hey guys, I have some great news for you two that you're never gonna believe," Kagome said as she kneeled down towards them. "What is it, Kagome?" Rin asked her curiously. She took a breath and said, "After we've adopted you both, you two are gonna be the oldest siblings of this baby." "You mean you're having a baby, Mama?" Shippo asked as Kagome nodded in response. "That's great news, Mommy!" Rin exclaimed excitedly, hugging Kagome as she's wrapping her arms around her neck. "We can't wait to meet our baby brother or sister." "Yeah, we're gonna be the best siblings ever!" Shippo exclaimed too. Kagome giggled with a smile. "I'm glad you two are looking forward to meeting your baby brother and sister," she said. "You two are gonna be wonderful siblings." Sesshomaru saw a familiar figure landing towards him slowly. He knew it was his younger sister, Isabo, and her two pups, Kazuki and Suki. "Brother, how's my new sister-in-law doing?" Isabo asked with a kind smile. Sesshomaru smiled at her. "Kagome is doing well. I'm looking forward to meeting my child," he told Isabo. "Kagome and I adopted Shippo and Rin after our wedding." She smiled more. "That's great to hear. I bet my two pups will make friends of Shippo and Rin. I'm sure they'll be great cousins. And congrats for adopting the pups and being a father to your guys' unborn baby." He bowed down to her with his head. "Thank you, Isabo." After this conversation, Isabo let Kazuki and Suki play with them for a while and went to go talk to Kagome as she walked towards her. "Kagome, may I speak to you for a moment?" Isabo asked. Kagome nodded. "Of course." The two women sat on the big rock and watched over their children. They watched them running around in the field while playing tag. Isabo gazed at Rin, who was running around with her wide arms flying like an eagle. She smiled at this, thinking how lovely the young girl is. As for Shippo, Isabo thought that he has always been an adorable one. To her point of view, she heard what happened to Shippo's father, who was killed by the Thunder Brothers, and Rin's family, who were slaughtered by bandits. She felt bad for the two children, who were completely orphaned, but turned out they had new parents like Kagome and Sesshomaru. "Kagome, there's something I want to give you," Isabo said as she pulled something out of her pocket. Kagome stared at it. "What is it?" Isabo showed it to her. It was a beautiful necklace. It has a green diamond with yellow chains around the necklace. "It's a necklace. This is a gift for your wedding," she told Kagome. "My father gave me this necklace right before Inuyasha was born." Kagome took the necklace and looked at it. "But why the necklace? You know it's yours, right?" "No. I want you to keep it, Kagome. This necklace tells you that you had already loved someone else as I do. Father told me once you found someone you loved, you will wear this necklace and never take it off. It's because this necklace was important to you. Now you have Sesshomaru, and you will wear this necklace. You will always keep this necklace around your neck and will always be near Sesshomaru's side. This is the necklace I want to give you." Isabo explained as she passed the necklace to her left hand, then closed it with her bare hands. Kagome smiled, holding on to the necklace. "Thank you, Isabo," she said as she hugged her gently. "After I give you this necklace, I must return to the castle due to business, but I want you to watch over my pups while I'm busy working. Tell my children that I'll be there to pick them up after I'm done working," Isabo said, standing up straight and walking away. She nodded in response. "I will, Isabo." With a smile on Isabo's face, she began to float in the air while flying towards the sky, returning to her castle. Within a few minutes after she returned to the western castle, Isabo landed on the floor and walked towards the door. When she was about to have a meeting with the lords, she heard a complaint from the other room. Isabo checked in the room and saw who it was. She realized that familiar voice. Isabo knew it was the last person she wanted to see. She was from the northern land. It was Inuyumi. Isabo smirked at this as she heard her complaining about this human girl. She noticed she was talking about Kagome, but not in her castle. She then came out of nowhere and stood behind Inuyumi. "Plotting, are we, Inuyumi?" she asked with a dark smirk and raised her brows, crossing her arms across her chest. Inuyumi shrieked in surprise, turning around, seeing it was Isabo who first spoke to her. "Oh, Isabo, you scared me," she said with nervous laughter. Isabo smirked again. Why would you be so jumpy, Yumi?" "Unless she's up to something. I don't know what she's doing in my castle." She began to walk towards Inuyumi with a threatening look. "You know, if you leave the castle peacefully without any kind of problem, you and my dear brother Sesshomaru can remain friends." Inuyumi glared at her. "And what's that supposed to mean, Isabo?" Isabo narrowed her golden eyes in her authority. "It means, Yumi, if you do anything to interfere with Sesshomaru's happiness, I will personally make sure your ashes return to the northern land and your parents." Inuyumi gave her a dirty look. Was that a threat, Isabo? Isabo began to chuckle with a smile and insanity. "Why no, Inuyumi. That was a promise. If you haven't noticed," she said in a dark tone, "I truly don't like you for my brother. You only like him for status and wealth. You shall never compare his mate to my sister-in-law Kagome. To my point of view, I'm very impressed with her spiritual powers. I would say she's like a sister to me, and I would also consider her a better mate for my brother." Without a warning, she saw an angry look on her face. Inuyumi began to snarl at her with red glowing eyes and big fangs. Isabo could see that on her face, she was about to transform herself into the giant demon dog. She is not his mate. She is just a human priestess. She's nothing but a wench. Isabo raised her eyebrows as she walked towards Inuyumi. You seem to forget your place, Yumi, she said with a smile. When Inuyumi was about to say something, she felt being grabbed in the neck by Isabo's hand. She felt being squeezed tightly. Isabo faced Inuyumi in a frown. Yumi, I can snap your neck easily if I choose to. Just remember that you decided to raise your tone at me. My lady, what's going on here? When they were interrupted, Isabo spun around and saw it was the servant who appeared out of nowhere. She can see his eyes gone widened when he saw her doing that. Isabo let go of Inuyumi's neck and said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It was a conversation. That's all." When the servant nodded in response and left her alone in the room with Inuyumi, Isabo turned her head and gave Inuyumi a death glare. Stay out of Sesshomaru's way. This is my last warning. When she left Inuyumi all alone in the room, she began to growl in frustration and anger. Once again, her eyes went red as she gritted her teeth sharply. Who the hell does that Isabo think she is? She shrieked in anger. Oh, I will show you who I am. No one takes what is mine. No one. Chapter 27. Inuyumi's Bad Advice. It's been 2 weeks since the day they became mates and family. Kagome's group grew bigger as a family in Kaede's village. She was glad Rin and Shippo got along with the White Wolf Princess Ayame. This wolf princess treated them with purity and kindness like she always does. She found it hilarious when she saw her 2 kids were chasing Jockin around in the flower field, trying to get him to wear the necklace of flowers that Rin had made him. She's also glad Inuyasha and Ayame got along together while watching over her 2 pups. She smiled to that happily, marrying to Sesshomaru, adopting 2 pups of her own, and having his half-breed baby. Kagome? It was Sesshomaru who spoke to her. Yes? Kagome spun around. Do you think Koga will know that Ayame is with Inuyasha? Sesshomaru asked. Well, when they go to his territory, he'll notice that Ayame and Inuyasha are together, Kagome said. He softened his golden eyes. Why do you look like you don't want to see him? He asked Kagome. She sighed with a sweat drop. Well, that wolf won't stop calling me his woman whenever I meet up with him. I used to like him a lot since I was 15 years old. I see. As a matter of fact, she used to like Koga, but turned out she turned 16 or 17 years old when she changed a lot. She didn't like when Koga calls her my woman. She always knew that he wouldn't stop. She also knew that he only called her that because she could sense the 2 jewel shards around his 2 ankles, and to get out of his engagement with Ayame. Koga will never stop calling her that. Kagome was glad she was with Sesshomaru as her so-called mate, or even her husband. That wolf better not ever lay his hands on you, Sesshomaru growled, showing his love for his mate. With that, she couldn't help but giggle. Don't worry, Sesshomaru, he won't. Remember, he found out about it. Kagome replied with a kind smile. He chuckled at this. Well, I'm glad. When he finds out what's going on between her and my brother, he's going to have to deal with it. Kagome nodded in agreement. Well, I have to go pick up Isabo's pups. She's having a meeting with the lords, Sesshomaru said right before he kissed her on her left cheek. Okay, be careful, Sesshomaru, Kagome said loudly, watching him fly away. When Sesshomaru left to pick his sister's pups up, Kagome continued to watch over her 2 pups, but she was picking one of the herbs and putting it in the basket. Suddenly, a figure approached her when she didn't know who was coming. Kagome didn't hear her footsteps. It was Inuyumi. Well, isn't that something? Inuyumi said with a dark smile, staring at Kagome who was picking the flowers. She had watched over them before Sesshomaru took off. She narrows her amber eyes and says, So, this is Sesshomaru's mate that they were talking about. Let's see what you have to say now, bitch. When she was about to approach her closely, she heard a voice was calling out. It was Jockin, who was keeping an eye on Kagome all along. Inuyumi, what are you doing here? Jockin asked, holding on to his staff and pointing at her. Rin and Shippo saw what was going on. They noticed there was another demon dog like Sesshomaru and his family. Inuyasha and Ayame spun their head around and saw a figure standing in front of Kagome. "Who the hell is she?" Inuyasha asked in a stern voice. "I don't know, Inuyasha. Let's find out," Ayame said as she and Inuyasha approached them quickly. Inuyasha didn't trust this female demon who was about to do something to her. Kagome didn't know what was going on. She spun around and saw another female dog who stood in front of her. "Oh, hi there. You must be Inuyumi, right? I'm Kagome. Nice to meet you." Inuyumi chuckled. "Nice to meet you as well, priestess," she said with a fake smile. "I've heard from Sesshomaru's family saying that you and Sesshomaru got married. I just wanted to congratulate your marriage. I'm sure Sesshomaru was thrilled." Kagome smiled back. "Thank you, Inuyumi." "Why the hell are you here, woman?" Inuyasha shouted. "Inuyasha!" Ayame interrupted him. "Inuyumi, why did you come here to approach Sesshomaru's mate?" Inuyumi frowned as she hated to hear them saying Sesshomaru's mate. Kagome was only a human after all. She despised humans and half-breeds like Inuyasha. "I'm not here to approach her. I'm here to visit her. That is all that matters. I would say I'm in shock," Inuyumi said. Kagome smiled again with a sweat drop, although she can sense her jealousy aura. She forced herself a smile. She felt a bit nervous about what Inuyumi was about to do to her, but one of her hands was here to protect her, as Sesshomaru does. As a matter of fact, she forgot to get her sacred arrow to protect herself. "Well, you're welcome here anytime you want. Sesshomaru came by once, but he has pulled away on his journey. You know how busy he can be," Kagome said. Inuyumi looked away. "Well, that's how it starts. That's how when I and Sesshomaru used to be together when I was his fiancé." Everyone widened their eyes in shock. "You're Sesshomaru's fiancé?" "Ex-fiancé. He refused to mate with me," Inuyumi said in a stern voice. Kagome blinked. "You're his mate?" "Yes, we used to be together. He surely told you about me, didn't he?" Inuyumi said with a frown. Kagome looked away. No. She then chuckled as Inuyasha kept a watch on Inuyumi. "What's so funny, Inuyumi?" Jockin shouted in anger. "Well, that's because he's ashamed of me, like he would ever be with you," Inuyumi said as she leaned close to her. She gave her an evil smirk and told her this. "Listen well, priestess. If you know what's good for you, you know that Sesshomaru will leave your side as he did for me." "Inuyumi?" Suddenly, they heard a familiar voice who stood in front of them, along with Kazuki and Suki. They spun around and saw it was Sesshomaru who overheard his ex-mate. Inuyumi gasped in shock. She gave him a fake sweat drop. "Oh, Sesshomaru, I didn't see you there. I was just..." "I know what you're doing. How dare you talk to her like that?" Sesshomaru growled at her furiously as his red eyes went red. He ran close to Kagome and their two pups. "I don't want you to come near my mate, my pups, or my unborn child. Now get out!" Inuyumi was in shock by hearing him saying that Kagome was pregnant with his half-breed baby. She glared at him in frustration without a word, leaving them be. She looks over Kagome and tells her, "Remember what I said, priestess." When Inuyumi left, Kagome looked away in a sweat drop and disappointment. She didn't know Inuyumi was his ex-mate. "What the hell is she doing here?" Sesshomaru snapped in anger. Inuyasha sighed at this. "I don't know, but she must be a jealous dog." "Sesshomaru, is this true? Is it true that you and Inuyumi were mates?" Kagome asked in concern. He sighed in disbelief. "We used to be mates, but I don't love her." "Why?" "Because I caught her with another man. So I decided not to mate with her, since she was foolish enough to mate with the other males," Sesshomaru explained to her. "I'm sorry to hear this. You know I still love you," Kagome said as she embraced Sesshomaru tightly. He embraced back as well. "Well guys, when this bitch is gone, let's go back to Kaede's village. We're wasting our time," Inuyasha said as everyone nodded in agreement. They then headed back to Kaede's village and continued to move on with their lives. Meanwhile, with Inuyumi, who was completely angry, she couldn't believe that this human girl Kagome was pregnant with a half-demon child. She growled in frustration when she walked towards the dark path, mumbling to herself. I can't believe this. This bitch is pregnant with a half-breed? I will never allow this to happen. Inuyumi complained as she stormed off in anger with frustration. When she does, she heard a voice was calling out to her. She spun around and saw a man with the baboon cloak appear from the dark shadows. Hello there, Inuyumi. Who the hell are you, wicked demon? He smirked darkly, walking towards her slowly. It hurts, doesn't it? Having your heartache by your mate? You're not going to let them get away with that now, are you? I said, who the hell are you, and what do you want? He chuckled evilly. My name is Naraku, and I'm here to help you. It's okay to hate them both, and I'm also here to give you an offer. And what offer do you have, Naraku? Inuyumi asked with narrow eyes. Naraku chuckled evilly with a smirk. You shall see.